This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the morning of Monday, September 16th, 2024. I'm Alex Brown. It's an ambitious goal to become the global epicenter of sports, from events to technology to women's sports and entrepreneurship. 2050 Vision is a roadmap for developing the sports ecosystem for Indianapolis and Indiana for the next 25 years, says Indiana Sports Corp President Patrick Talty.
Events is still our keystone. It's going to be the thing that we always go after. It's the kind of the open door that gets us to all this other things. But that's really, we're going to move from this economic impact where we're always thinking about heads on beds to economic development. How do we get people to visit, but then how do we get them to stay? How do they build a business here? How do they build a family here? How do they hire employees here? How do they put all their wealth back into Indiana? We continue to grow Indiana.
Officials in Bloomington will cut the ribbon today on the latest workforce housing project in the University Village downtown area. The $23 million annex of Bloomington features two buildings with just over 100 apartment units, as well as ground floor retail space, including a new Brew Burger location. Indiana's revenue collections missed projections in August. The Indiana State Budget Agency said Friday that general fund revenues last month totaled more than $1.4 billion, which was 1% lower than the December 2023 forecast and 3% lower than the same month last year. This is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
IBJ Media, Inside Indiana Business, and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation invite you to the Engage Indiana series, presented by CareSource, Indiana University, and Old National Bank. With an unrelenting focus on growing Indiana's economy, we'll dive into each region's unique challenges and distinct opportunities for growth. 9 regions, 1 goal. Indiana's bold future starts here. Discover more and register at ibj.com/engage.
After a previous lawsuit was dismissed last month, 2 new challenges were filed Friday against Indiana's recently enacted university intellectual diversity requirements. IIB's Marek Mazurek has details.
Like before, the professor-led lawsuits, filed separately against Indiana and Purdue universities, allege the state policies are unconstitutionally vague and infringe upon faculty members' free speech and academic freedom, violating the First and 14th Amendments to the Constitution. The ACLU of Indiana lodged the complaints on behalf of the professors. Federal Judge Sarah Evans Baker of the U.S. District Court in Indiana's Southern District declined to issue a preliminary injunction blocking enforcement of the new law in August, citing jurisdictional issues. She additionally said in her ruling that the professors' allegations were, quote, premature because the universities hadn't finalized policies implementing the new law. Now enacted, the new policies are specifically being challenged by the professors. Legislators approved the law in March. It deals with public institutions for higher education and their boards of trustees, altering diversity-oriented positions and policies for tenure, contract renewals, performance reviews, and more. The law also establishes new reporting and survey requirements based on, quote, free inquiry, free expression, and intellectual diversity, end quote. In both lawsuits, IU and Purdue professors maintain the law's vague and sweeping mandates make it impossible for the professors to discern what they're required to do, or refrain from doing, to avoid being deemed to have failed those cultures. I'm Marek Mazurek for Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Carmel-based MBX Biosciences saw its shares jump nearly 48% in its debut Friday on the NASDAQ. The 5-year-old company is developing treatments for endocrine and metabolic disorders such as hypoparathyroidism, post-bariatric hypoglycemia, and obesity. Its positive reception on Wall Street was seen as an extension of the general enthusiasm for obesity treatments. MBX said on Thursday it raised $163.2 million by selling 10.2 million shares at $16 each in its initial public offering. The company's shares opened on the market Friday at $23 each and closed at $23.65. The company said it planned to use the proceeds from the IPO to advance the development of its drug candidates. Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology professor Carlotta Berry is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports, and entertainment, and beyond. Available now from your favorite podcast provider. I'm Alex Brown for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.